Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name is Uriel Senan. I'm really glad to be here, and I will be your moderator for the next talks. Before we start, let me remind you that you can put questions and comments on our chat, or you can also use our Slack channel, Ask the Shiny Conference, Ask the Shiny Speaker, sorry. So, with that being said, let's start with our first presentation that is entitled The Making of an Engineer, Learning, Growing, and Thriving at Appsilon. It will be presented by David Blair and Douglas Mesquita. David serves as an R-Shiny developer at Appsilon with prior roles as a statistician and software engineer at Unilever. His contributions at Unilever centered around the standardization of clinical data and enhancing data management through automation. He holds a degree in mathematics, where his work emphasized the use of Gini algorithms and metrics decompositions for practical applications. Professionally, he's interested in identifying and implement highly automated solutions to increase operational efficiency. David will be presenting together with Douglas. Douglas Mesquita is a statistician currently working as a software developer at Appsilon. During his adventures as data scientist, he started using Shiny to present the results of complex models and findings in a friendly way for regular audience. In his free time, he likes to act like an average person, explore the world, and play sports. However, his scientific vein often calls him and eventually writes some scientific papers. So, with that being said, the floor is yours, guys.
Thank you very much, Oriol, for this kind introduction. And hello, everyone. Thank you all for attending our talk today. First of all, I would like to ask you to be prepared to access Slido, since, we have prepared some questions for you.
Yeah, sorry. If you look on the screen, you can. There's a QR code that you can scan, or you can access the poll through the link that I've just put in the chat. So the first question that we have for you is, how many years of R-Shiny experience do you have? And we'll give you some time to answer that. And over to you, Douglas.
Thank you. So my name is Douglas, and today we'll be talking a bit about our perspectives on what are the steps to grow as a Shiny developer. And we will cover our previous career, how we ended up as a Shiny developer, what we did in order to grow, and maybe what are our next steps. David, who will introduce himself in a bit, will help me to go through all these topics. And just a little bit about me. I've been working in Appsilon for now around 2.5 years. And before joining Appsilon, I was working as a data scientist, as Oriol said, and using Shiny mainly not professionally for personal or even like smaller commercial projects. I was counting before this presentation, and it looks like I have been playing with Shiny for around 10 years already. So it's quite a long time already. Mike's yours, David.
Yeah. So good morning or afternoon, everyone. I'm David Blair. And I've worked for Appsilon as an R-Shiny developer for just over 3 months now. And prior to that, I was developing R-Shiny applications at Unilever for several years. So now let's just have a little look at the results here. So it looks like we mostly have beginners here, actually. There's a couple of more experienced people. Now, Douglas, I think that everyone that I've met at Appsilon, they all sort of came to R-Shiny through very different paths. I mean, how did you find yourself getting as involved with R-Shiny as you have been?
That's definitely an interesting question, and I do agree with you that people, they come here by many different paths. Well, basically, my background is in statistics, which means that I'm using statistical softwares for quite a long time, but in my case, mainly R. And actually, I started using Shiny during my master's degree. As Oriol said, I was trying to explain some statistical results in a way that, regular audience would understand. And after that, I started using these for some commercial projects, but really small ones. And at some point, I remember I even told one of my best friends that, oh, I would love to be paid to develop Shine applications. And after some time, I realized that, well, there are some companies out there selling Shine apps for their clients, for example, Appsilon. Well, which means that there are companies out there selling Shine related projects. And I remember I was working as a data scientist for almost 2 years when I decided to try a different path and yeah, dedicate my time to for being a Shine developer, basically. What about your path, David? You're muted.
Should unmute myself? Yeah. Yeah, it was sort of through a different path. I became quite immersed in our Shiny during my placement year at university. But at the time, I was more interested in automating quite boring tasks, and our Shiny was an ideal candidate for creating like a GUI. And I think the way in which an R Shiny app is structured, along with the expressiveness of the R language itself, it's a very unique and quite compelling combination. And so naturally, I was led to Appsilon, as there aren't very many companies that are as dominant in the R Shiny field as they are. And I'm curious to ask you, actually, what was it like when you first joined Appsilon?
Well, as I said, as soon as I realized I could work as a Shine developer, I started, well, moving and preparing myself for this, right? As I'm a statistician, I was not truly confident about my software development skills, I'd say. Since, well, in statistics, at least in my university, we did not learn good practice for coding, for example. But yeah, after some reading some materials, I thought, okay, it can be possible. Of course, it would require some investment, specifically time to learn different things, right? Well, then I gave my shot and I applied to work here at Appsilon, and well, here am I. Um, well, but to be honest, the first 2 weeks they were really insane here. Not because the amount of work, but in the sense that I've learned so much in these 2 weeks that it's really complicated for me to explain. Because before joining Appsilon, as I said before, I was working with Shiny more for pleasure or some small commercial projects. But when I joined Appsilon, it changed drastically, right? And I started realizing what it means to be a software developer. Yeah, some things that I would not pay attention to when I was developing my personal projects, they became a must. Suddenly, I was learning, I don't know, how to use JS, which I barely knew before, how to properly use Git, CI/CD, unit tests, end-to-end tests, and much more. Of course, I was aware about those topics before. I mean, I heard it. I heard the terms before, but I never applied this to my own projects. And yeah, another huge difference was the project structure itself. By the time that I joined Appsilon, we did not have Rhino yet, but we had a boilerplate, which became the Rhino later. And nowadays, when I open some old projects from previously before Appsilon, I can't believe how much I grew and how my Shine apps are much better, in a much better shape right now. But you, David, you just joined Appsilon. Was the experience different for you?
Yeah, I think it was quite different. I think the main differences come from the fact that it's consultancy rather than R&D. And a notable difference that you find when you're developing our Shiny apps professionally is that things like testing, effective documentation, organizing your projects very carefully with Git, and generally having clean code, these all start to matter a lot more. In my previous role, yeah, these things were important, but here we're building essential pieces of software for clients, and that really raises the bar of what you expect from yourself and the quality of the code that you produce. And it's also very clear to me that the standards of our Shiny code in Appsilon, they're very high. Um, All right, so before we move on, I'd just like to invite the audience to answer another question. So as before, you can either scan the QR code on the screen or you can click the link in the chat. But I think everyone should be there now anyway, so it should let you answer. There we go. And the question we want to ask you is, do you find it easier to learn collaboratively or independently? And while we let you answer that, Douglas, what was the learning process for you like when you were just starting out with our Shiny and Appsilon?
Okay. Yeah, when I started, in my case, I was basically always trying to find and use some ready-to-use solutions in the past. And obviously, at that time, I did not have much time to invest creating something new. However, at Appsilon, sometimes you need to be the one creating the solutions that will become these ready-to-use solutions for the others, right? Like me, that I could count on my colleagues, I would say. I think that in general, the Shiny community is really active and supportive, to be honest. Rarely you find some no-answered questions. And I don't know, when you ask a question in Stack Overflow, for example, there is always someone out there that already had some similar issue, and people are there to share their experience. And I learned a lot by also watching and reading from my colleagues. And it's important to mention because since we have here people with so many different backgrounds working with Shiny every day, it's kind of easy to find at least one person that can help you and guide you through the right direction when you have an open question. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you also use the community, David. Is that correct? Muted?
I'm muted again. Brilliant. I think it's usually quite difficult to learn anything when you're in like an echo chamber. And in my previous role, because I was the only R Shiny developer on the team, coming to Appsilon, I'm now constantly surrounded by R Shiny professionals with varying levels of experience. And then, one thing you start to notice is that there are a lot of different types of R Shiny developers. Like you have those that exclusively use an integrated development environment and then they avoid the terminal like the plague. But then you have those that refuse to leave the terminal and they probably still have their mouse in a box somewhere. But in any case, I think having this diversity of approach to our Shiny development, it really lets you find your own way. And you're looking at these results, actually, these are quite surprising. I think that it looks like the majority of people prefer to learn independently, which is kind of interesting, actually. I wouldn't have expected that. Now, do you have any plans for your career going forward, or are you just making it up as you go along?
Yeah. Currently, I still think I have a lot to learn in the coding perspective. I feel that I can improve my skills using Shiny since almost every week, to not say every day, we have a new technology that we can integrate with Shiny, or maybe a new package that, I don't know, allows you to make some wonderful UI, for example. So that there are always things to learn, I would say. And I still like to dive into it, and I see myself doing it for a while, to be honest. Also, at some point, I would like to get involved in open source development, as I already did in the past. And this is a different branch compared to developing and or improving Shine applications, right? In this case, as I mentioned before, you are the one providing solutions that make the life of the other developers easier. At some point, I would like to invest some time on it. Another possibility is as you get more experienced, you can guide new developers on how to grow and assist them in order to make them to enjoy it more and be more productive at the same time. In this case, it works more like a technical person that also can help developers in their career. And what are your plans so far?
Yeah, it's a difficult question, isn't it, about the idea of goals and all that sort of stuff. But and given that I only left university in June of last year, this is something that's been quite front and center for the last 9 months. I think that thinking too far into the future is about as reliable as predicting the price of a stock in 20 years' time, right? There's just too many variables, and your priorities are going to change. So for myself, I try to think in terms of opening up as many opportunities as possible. And that does involve some short to medium term goals. So at the moment, I'm working towards becoming a tech lead at Appsilon, which is essentially this combination of project management and technical skills all wrapped in one. And actually, luckily, Appsilon has a very transparent mechanism for assessing people at different levels. And actually, we have our career paths document, actually, and it might be worth just putting that into the chat. There we go. So, yeah, in summary, I know that being where I am now and on the path that I'm currently on at Appsilon, the opportunities in a year's time or 2 years' time, they'll far exceed those available to me now. So, Douglas, how do you keep up to date with the Shiny world? How do you get updated with Shiny news?
Well, there are a few places that I use frequently in order to look for answers. Normally, when I have a problem, in case I do not find the answer in Stack Overflow, it's like really rare. Normally, the answer is somehow in the package documentation if you read it carefully when it's about a package problem, right? But other than that, there are a bunch of books, blogs, and a lot of content on the internet that I use to guide myself. And not only about Shiny functionalities, but also, I don't know, data handling, code style, and things like this. So we have a lot of material out there. And yeah, other than that, I try my best to keep up to date with conference. So we have a lot of R conference, and every time it's R related, you can be sure that you have some Shine content on it. Well, right now we are in a conference that's all about Shiny, right? So for sure you can find interesting topics, and maybe you not use it right now, but at least you know it exists. And in the future, in case you need this, you can come back, see the material, watch the recordings, and it can be really useful for you, right? Do you have any different resource, David?
Yeah, I mean, probably just quickly, my main 2 places I use are LinkedIn and GitHub. So I find that if you want to keep up to date on the latest developments for like a specific package, then GitHub is really good for that because you can see a summary of all the latest packages, latest releases for your chosen packages, like the ones you starred. And you can also explore trending packages for different languages. And I think that can usually give you some really good ideas of things to build from that section. And then other than that, there's pretty much a Slack channel for everything. And one of the interesting ones is the one for the R community. And it's fascinating to go on there because you see bugs that people have found when using some obscure function or base utility. And you can also check out the Shiny for All Slack, which I spent some time on, and I'm always happy to answer questions in there. So you can reach out directly to me. That's fine. And actually, I can put that link for the Shiny for All Slack in there in case anyone hasn't come across it. All right, so just one last question before we wrap up. We're going to ask one more question. And the question is, what is the best framework to create web applications? It's a tricky one, this one.
Yeah, thanks, David. Well, I would like to say thank you to everyone. And now, Oriol, we are open for some questions from the audience in case we have any.
Hey, yeah, that was inspiring, and I think it was clear that there are different paths to become a Shiny engineer. So I would like to mention to some comment, and I will say, someone said, I wish that I could learn Shiny collaboratively, but no one in my sphere is working with it. So what would you recommend to this person?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it's really related with what David said about his previous company, right? Sometimes you are working alone with a technology, and it's kind of hard to share the experience. But well, as I said, I think that there are like many places in which you can go to ask for help, especially this Slack channel that David just talked about. And yeah, maybe David has more ideas since he was in this position at some point.
True. I mean, my solution to that was to join Appsilon. So maybe that is a solution. But yeah, you have to find a way to try and get involved with the community, because you need to be in a position where you can be comparing your code to other people. Otherwise, you're never going to improve. And I realized that, now I mentioned in that talk, the bar that I now realize of where our Shiny can be is so much higher than it was before. So I just say, try and get out into the community, contribute to open source projects, and soon you'll realize, yeah, this is actually the right way to be writing this code.
Yes, okay. There are more questions, but we don't have time to answer them right now. So please, you can, apart from the chat, you can use our Slack channel. So David, Douglas, thank you very much for this presentation. I think many people will find it inspiring, and be ready for our next presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone.